literally just took the blinders off. It literally went in my head and it was like, wow, this is where you thought your ceiling was the whole time, and they just showed you it's actually up here.
All right, welcome back to another episode of Potato Finance Podcast. Mr. Nick Wright.
Hey.
How are we doing?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm good. It's nice to have you on again, and you're actually the first repeat guest on this podcast.
I was the first guest and the first repeat guest.
I know. It's actually been a little more challenging to get people to come on than I thought it was going to be, because some people are like so gung-ho about it, but you can obviously only have like that person on so many times.
Yeah.
And then some people they're like, dude, I can't do it. Like, maybe it's the camera, maybe it's the mic, I don't know, the lights. A lot of people are actually intimidated by the lights.
Really?
Yeah, like a lot of people have come and they're like, all right, it's no big deal, because I just tell them like it's just like a casual conversation.
Yeah.
And then the lights go on, and I think that's what really makes them like really shy. They're like, oh shoot, this is like actually a production.
It's crazy. I'm trying to remember what it was like to do things without lights. Like, everywhere I've gone has had lights.
That's what I mean. Like, I just don't even really think twice about it anymore, because it's like every time I film a video or one of these, it's just second nature to turn the lights on. Like, I feel like I would feel more awkward not having the lights on as opposed to having them on.
And then after filming with lights on, you go back to your regular house lights and it's like dark.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking that like actually right before you got here. Like, I was trying to get these in the right place, and I was just like, it's really dark in here without these on.
Yeah. It's wild. I like the lights.
How's trading been, man?
It's been good. It's been good. Last week was good. This week has been good besides yesterday, because I went and got greedy and impatient and I ended up losing like $400 in a day.
Oof.
Still happens once
Sad
in a while.
face on the calendar that day, I'm guessing.
Yeah, sad face on the calendar that day.
That's upsetting.
It was totally my fault too. Totally unavoidable.
Now, where are you in the point where, I guess, what is the ratio of successful days versus unsuccessful days?
More successful days than I mean, I haven't tracked it because I focus on, my big focus is, am I coming out green for that week? When the week is all said and done, am I green? And is the month green?
Right.
That's my big focus. So I don't track too many. I do track every single day. Like, I'll go in and I'll write down what the P&L was that day.
Right.
But like, it's just kind of like I do it as I go, so I can go back and look at it. But I haven't actually gone back and added up like how many days in a very long time. But I mean, I've been green. The only exception would have been actually just coming off of July, because we had so many family visiting, and like we had my grandmother's memorial at the end of it and all that. So a lot of distraction with trading that month. But outside of that month, pretty good.
Now, do you feel like with trading, do you put like any sort of, or do you feel any like kind of like pressure, I guess, that comes like if you were to add it up day after day? Like, let's say you had 2 or 3 bad days in a row, two or three sad faces in a row. Do you feel kind of any sort of pressure where it's like, all right, Thursday, like I really got to make this a good day. I really got to find these great trades, or do you not think of it like that?
Yeah, what I try to do is make sure I'm not thinking like that, because that can happen. It can, two things can happen from that. You can either go on to the 4th day of that scenario thinking the exact same way you just said, where you're like, all right, now the pressure's on, I have to make it up. And that's dangerous, because you end up revenge trading. Yeah. And what you'll end up doing is becoming impatient and forcing trades that aren't really the best trades to get into.
Right.
And you can really lose money fast that way. I mean, it's almost like a gambler's mindset.
Right.
So you don't want to do that. The other thing that could happen is you become flat out discouraged about it, and you become kind of like, F it, what do I have to lose? I'm already in the hole. And that's like another gambler's mentality. You know, what do I have to lose this 4th day? Let's just wing it. I tried the first 3 days. It didn't work. Let's just toss money into this and this and this the 4th day, because it doesn't even matter anymore. And that's equally dangerous. So actually what I'll do is, if I had like 3 bad days in a row, which I haven't had in a while, thankfully. And I haven't had a loss as big as $400 in a while either. That was just purely bad. But I'm usually really good at like risk management, so I don't lose. When I do lose, I make sure I don't lose much, so it's not bad. Like, I can't remember the last time before the other day that I lost more than $100 at a time. Like, and then but what I'll try to do though is if I do have like a streak of bad days like that, I'll make myself get off for the week.
Right.
That's the best move right there. Like, you got to make sure your emotions are gone. So get off for the week. Come back with a fresh head, a clear slate. You basically, when you return to trading, you want to be in the mindset of there was no win or loss prior. Like, this is your first time trading. You almost want to feel like that when you go back on a trading.
Right.
So I'll take the week off if I have to.
The entire week. You don't even do like something where it's like, all right, let me just like take today off, say if it is like a Wednesday and come back on Friday, or maybe just let me look, but I got to see something I feel really good about. You just take the entire week off.
It totally depends on the situation.
Right.
Now, lately, I've been feeling very confident and focusing more on discipline. So now I will do something like that. Like I had that, for example, I had that bad day Tuesday.
Right.
It was after a fantastic week prior, and it was after a really good Monday. So it didn't actually like hurt my account or anything, but it was just a really poor performance on Tuesday.
Right.
And I felt myself. I knew from the second I woke up, I felt off. I felt very impatient, and it bit me. And I made myself get off for the rest of that day. But the very next morning, today, Wednesday, I was back at it, and today went fine.
Right.
So, yeah, with that one, I was able. I had to make myself get off for the rest of the day because I could tell my head was just not there.
Right.
And I was liable to make stupid decisions like try to chase it, try to revenge trade. And that was yesterday. But I knew like I got away from the computer. I cooled off, calmed my head down. And by that evening, I felt back to normal again. I was like, all right, you have the rest of your trade still in motion. You have your plans for the next day. And I felt grounded. I didn't feel like I had to make up anything.
Right.
The biggest thing I made sure I had in my head that I kept hammering home was today, this was yesterday, I was telling myself this, but when today rolled around, I wanted to go into it as if that loss never happened.
Right.
I wanted to focus on just what I could do today. Because that's also very dangerous. You might have a killer week where you make $1,000, couple grand, whatever. Then suddenly this bad day where you lose 400 of it from last week or whatever, and then you're like
completely discouraged.
Then you're like, and then what'll happen is you get into these trades, and I wanted to make sure I didn't do this. But you might have trades going, and these trades just might not be big trades.
Right.
Maybe they're just small. You got a small position, or they're just not big movers.
Right.
But they're still good trades. Money's money.
Right.
But what can end up happening is, say you're in a couple of trades already, and they pan out, and maybe you're up $200.
Right.
Now, though, normally you'd be like, all right, good. Those were supposed to be small trades. They hit my mark. Let's exit this $200 extra bucks. But now you might make the mistake of being like, but I'm down $400. That only made up $200.
That makes sense. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Let's let these things go, or let's double down and add to them here, and then you might burn yourself.
Yeah, you like you said, like trying to force it's usually not the best decision in really anything in life, not just trading or really anything.
Exactly. So my whole thing was I wanted to make sure I ignored that dollar amount loss.
Right.
It didn't even happen. And I just focused with a blank slate today. Today's a totally blank slate. I didn't win or lose anything yesterday, or make or lose anything. I'm just going to see what I can do today. What is today going to give me? What can I do with it? If it's if I make $400 back, awesome. If I only make $10, if I don't make a single trade all day because nothing looks good, fine. That's what today is.
Right.
So that's how I went into it, and that was fine. So that was an example where, yeah, like once you've been at it for a while and you gain discipline over yourself, yeah, you can definitely return to it. Or there'll be times, to answer your question further, there'll be times where maybe I'm getting burnt with day trading,
right,
like 2 days in a row, and I make myself stop doing that. But maybe I still will keep an eye on the charts for like swing trades that I'm planning, and that won't be an issue.
It's probably like good every now and then to like reset, because with every, I guess, 9-to-5 job, like you want to take a vacation every here and there. Like you don't want to just like grind for 10 plus years only having like the weekends off. So
exactly.
It does make kind of sense.
It's a lot of weird psychology too, because like you got to really be aware of yourself. Like you can have 3 killer weeks in a row, and then what might happen is, and it's subtle, it's not obvious, but subtly overconfidence might start creeping into your mind.
Right.
And you start taking maybe higher risk or maybe bigger trades than you normally would. But it's subtle. It's not just like, oh man, I'm on top of the world, let me just do this line of coke and go at it. It's like very you still feel like you're all right, is this part of my plan? Is this part of my plan? But maybe you just we'll bump the size of this trade up just a little bit this time.
Yeah, like subtly. And you just like don't even notice. Like all those people that bought AMC and Tesla and GameStop.
I made out on AMC.
You did?
I did.
Do you still hold that?
Yeah, I hold some extra shares. So how I did with AMC is I bought shares and options when it was $9, and the options went up 8,000% in profit.
8,000%. That's just stupid.
Yeah, and I forget what the shares went up. I don't remember what the percentage of shares was. I added at different levels.
Right.
But they were up really nicely too. Nowhere near options because that's just options. For me.
Yeah.
But what I did is I cashed out all the options, and I made back. Everything I spent on options and shares, I made back literally like tenfold. And so like I was good. And then so I let my shares ride for a while. When I saw AMC was losing its gas and the apes weren't going to hold on very tight, I sold, I think I sold like 3/4 something like that, like 3/4 of the shares I was holding.
Just let the rest ride.
Yeah, and I sold them at a profit even after it came down. I think I sold them at like maybe 50, but I bought real low, so I still sold them at a nice profit.
Right.
And that was all just extra credit anyway because the options were just killer.
Right.
Like I said, I had a bunch of different options, all different strike prices. But like I said last podcast, one of them, just to give you an example of growth, went from $46 as a $46 call option. That's all it cost me, $46, and it went up to $3,300.
That's
at
insane.
its highest.
That's crazy.
And there's another one that was, I want to say 220-ish, and that went up to like 5,500-ish at its highest. So,
when do those expire? Do you remember?
yeah. The dates I had a few different dates. Let's see.
You just give me the year.
June. Oh, they were only like a month, maybe 2 months out. At the
they were
time.
short term.
Yeah, I bought them maybe early May. I can't remember the exact date. It was right before it started running. Anybody who does TA will know what I'm talking about. It was right at the end of AMC's triangle that it was forming. It was about $9. It was right before it popped back up to $13 for the first time. So I think that might have been May. Anyway, June 18th and June 25th were the two expiration dates I had. And they peaked. Actually, they peaked the day before my birthday on June 2nd.
Oh, wow.
My birthday's
Happy
June 3rd.
birthday.
Yeah, thank you.
That worked out for you.
Yeah, birthday's June 3rd. They hit their high June 2nd.
Wow.
And so I had plenty of time left. And yeah, it was awesome. And then, yeah, I held on to the shares just because the prospect of the short squeeze, going into some crazy ass number, not 100,000 ever, never ever.
Yeah.
I think that's ridiculous. But still, the prospect of it really getting up there, matching GameStop or something like that.
Right.
It's pretty realistic if you look at what's going on with it.
Recently, yeah.
But corruption is corruption. So, but anyway, I'd already made everything back with the options, and I had made a lot of profit with the options, and so I just let the shares ride. When I saw it was kind of losing its steam, I decided to sell, like I said, a good amount of them just to lock in profit. And I just have a good handful that are running, and if they go down to zero, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I mean, I think with that type of stock, that's really what you got to do because. Yeah. Like, it's like a spec play. And, I mean, you could have, I think we talked about this before. You could have made an argument that it was a really good spec play when it was at, $5, and it had more towards the attractive side of a risk-reward. But once that market cap got to, 40 or 50 billion, probably not the most attractive thing in the stock market, in my opinion.
Very high risk.
But, so here's an interesting question for you. So when you get ready to trade, or, maybe the night before, or whatever the case may be, do you have... any sort of routine you get into, maybe a morning routine or a nighttime routine, so you're, I guess, intellectually ready to trade?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, nighttime is not so much my routine. I try to read at night before I go to bed, just to kind of calm my mind down, get off the screen and stuff like that. I don't know how much of a correlation that has with trading the next morning, but morning time definitely. Morning, I'm staying at a beach house right now.
Right.
And it's beautiful. It's been in the family forever. It's double waterfront. I love it. So what I've been doing is I've been getting up at 8 o'clock in the morning every morning and make coffee. I only have about a half cup of coffee. And if anybody doesn't know, I used to be a caffeine junkie. I'm not sensitive to caffeine. I don't get shaky. I'm not one of those freaks that are numb to it either. Some people can have caffeine before they go to bed and sleep. I feel it, but I'm right in the middle. I'm a nice medium. So I used to have 400 milligrams of caffeine when I was training, 200 milligrams pre-workout, then another energy drink later on.
Pre-workout.
Yeah, right. So, but now what I've noticed is with trading, less is more for caffeine, especially if you have anxiety like I do or you're prone to it.
Yeah.
Caffeine, I've noticed, can make you, it can wake you up nicely, but it can make you too trigger happy on trading, or it can make your reaction not authentic. Say you're in a trade and it's running nicely, that always gives a little bit of excitement. You want to try to get to a point where it doesn't as a trader, but you're always going to feel a little bit of, ooh, it's running.
Yeah.
But if that caffeine kicks in at the same time, the heart goes extra, then suddenly you're like, oh, I should take profit now.
Explodes.
That's money. Let me close it now.
Yeah.
And next thing you know, you closed it way too early. You didn't follow your plan.
Yeah.
Or vice versa. You lose on a trade because you got out too early. You make mistakes. So what I do is now I only have a half a cup of coffee every single day, which is that's less than 80 milligrams of caffeine.
Less is probably more when it comes to caffeine. I feel that's better. I feel every time I've had a cup of coffee or a couple cups of coffee, and I was I think I want one more. Awful decision.
Yes,
it's like when you're getting ready to leave the bar and you're like, I'll just have one more drink. Never have it.
It's just like drinking.
Never.
Just
always
drinking. Yep.
Maybe one more. No, never one more. Always.
As soon as you hit that euphoric like dopamine release spot with anything, drinking, caffeine.
Yeah.
That's usually when you want more of the most. You're like, this feels great, more. That's usually when it's good to stop.
And then then you like stand up and you're like hyperventilating. Like it's like insane.
Yeah.
I'm actually really trying to cut out the caffeine right now.
Man, this has helped me. So I wanted to cut it out for a long time because I was such a caffeine junkie. And I'm not addicted to it. I've tried it's really odd. Maybe I am addicted to it, but I don't get like the headaches and stuff.
Right.
So like I've cut it out for like a month cold turkey before, and I didn't get any headaches or anything, but it just wasn't enjoyable. Like I was like, well, if I had caffeine, I'd feel like more excitable right now.
I think it's more so about like the habit and breaking that habit as opposed to like the caffeine itself. I feel like, say if I like maybe made tea that tasted the exact same, like every single morning I had a couple cups of tea as opposed to coffee, I think I would be completely fine. I don't think I would really miss coffee at all.
I think you're right. Yeah, so I've just by focusing on keeping my nerves and mental game in check for trading, I happen to cut down my caffeine tremendously. I mean, an average cup, and I just use like cheap like Folgers or whatever, basic stuff.
Yeah.
I'm not a crazy coffee snob. So half a cup is like, I don't know, what, 50 milligrams of caffeine?
It's not a lot, that's for sure.
Not a lot. So that's all I'm having now, and it does the trick. So what I do, my routine is I wake up at 8 o'clock. I don't shower in the morning at the beach house. Normally I do at home, but at the beach house, I'm going to go swimming at some point, so I just throw the bathing suit on. So cup of coffee in the morning. Ariana and I have the coffee. It takes me only a few sips. I check the charts. So coffee, checking the charts, just seeing where everything's at, seeing how my plans played out overnight, seeing what's set up.
Right.
And I've already had my game plans have been long made. I'm just kind of seeing where they move to overnight.
Right.
So I'm making sure I have a lay of the land for trading for the day ahead. And we still have an hour and a half till the market opens. Right? So check that out while I finish my coffee really quickly. Then Ariana and I go outside on this lawn that faces the ocean, and we meditate for 15 minutes.
That's a long time.
Yeah.
Like
I didn't start off doing 15 minutes.
I can do 10. I try to do 10 like at the end of the night, and I'll try to do like a couple sessions throughout the day. Like, but that 10 sometimes turns into 5 because sometimes that's just like hard 10 minutes, I find.
Yeah, dude. I started off with like 5 minutes, I think, and then worked my way up. And even for a while, like even when I got to 15 for the first time ever, like there'd be times where I'd go back to 10 because 15 was just too long.
Yeah.
But now I'm at my thing is I'm trying to apply more discipline to my life in all areas.
That's a crud.
Including meditating, which sounds almost kind of counterintuitive, but if you can't, for me, I'm saying everyone's at where they're at. But for me, where I'm at now, I'm like, if you can't slow yourself down and ground yourself for just 15 minutes out of the day,
right?
How are you gonna, hold on to an intense trade or something like that?
I think every single person should meditate.
Yeah,
I don't see a single reason why someone should not meditate.
Yeah.
I truly think that. And if you say you don't have enough time, that's the worst excuse like I've ever heard. Like, I guess if you were like, it's tough for me to find a quiet place, find one, go in the car.
Yeah.
But like,
the cool, interesting thing about it is too, it's like fundamentally you almost don't even need, or you should get, the goal is to get to a place where you don't even need quiet necessarily.
Yes.
Because you're meditating. So the whole thing is just to be present. Whatever's going on around you, you're just, you're flowing like water basically. So
right.
Even if there is noise, I've had that happen before where maybe there's construction going on next door or something crazy like that, a dog barking.
Right.
And you're like, wow, this is loud. And then I'll remind myself, I'm like, that's okay. It's just noises, and then continue anyway. And it feels good. So my routine is the coffee, just check the charts just to get a lay of the land. That helps me feel better. I'm like, because in the morning you're like, where did things go overnight? And then what we'll do before we meditate is we go out in our seats overlooking the ocean. Ariana will read the daily passage from this book, and I forget the name of it because it's her book. She got it. It's kind of like a meditation related book, and it's usually just like, it's short. It's it's like a page long each passage. It takes 2 minutes to read it, and there's usually like a meditation type exercise afterwards. I'll put the name of the book in the comments below this on YouTube. I'll put the name and the author of it. But it's really cool. It's just, and it's not anything religious or it's not anything hippie-ish either. It's really just a cool fundamental way to kind of ground yourself that day. Whether it's getting rid of anger you're holding or getting rid of anxiety you're harping on or something like that.
Right.
It's just a cool way to like kind of look at something like that. And it's just each page is something different every day.
Kind of like a horoscope in a way, more or less.
The way it's laid out is like horoscope-ish,
Gotcha.
but it's not astrology at all. It's
right.
literally
Absolutely.
just, you could believe in none of the hocus pocus, and this is still just good for your mind. That's
Gotcha.
basically all it is. And then the exercise is usually just an easy kind of breathing visualization exercise, but typically we won't do the exercise. We'll instead then just go into the meditating part.
Right.
So we'll meditate for 15 minutes, and then after the 15-minute meditation, we go inside and journal, actually. And this is something Ariana also got me into, is journaling. And it can be about anything. You know, you can journal. You can literally just say, okay, the meditation session was good, or it wasn't that good today, or whatever. But what I found is if you use it as a tool, it's really, really good for grounding you and keeping you in the moment. So I might journal like, okay, I feel super anxious today. I feel nervous about this or that, or I'm doubting myself about this or that. I just feel, and I don't have to come to a conclusion. I can just write it out. And it's cool because what I find is by the time I'm done writing it out, I end up having these epiphanies. I'm like, wow, this is what's going on in my mind. This is what the mind tricks I'm playing with myself.
Right.
And then I'll add that too. I'm like, wow. It's like, all right, so maybe I'll try, focusing on this today or something like that.
Right.
And it's really cool because it's helped me realize a lot of my own issues that I hold myself back with mentally in life, which has been so helpful for growth. It's helped me realize a lot of my weaknesses in trading and in discipline and just in life. And it's really good at grounding you. Like, I've gone from it's cool. I've woken up some mornings really anxious, not in the moment at all, thinking way ahead, thinking, oh, should I have gotten in that trade? Oh, am I going to be able to do this trade? I got to do this. Just thinking about everything ahead.
And you're still in bed.
Yeah, I'm still in bed. Exactly. Yeah, right. And I'm like, don't talk to me. I'm anxious as hell. Like, and I've gone from meditating to journaling about it. And by the end of journaling, it's like, the anxiety's gone. I feel grounded. I feel like I have control over like what is going on in my mind, and like, it's crazy. I mean, it's like it'll do a 180 on me sometimes.
Is that what you really try to write about? Just like what you're feeling, or do you have like a direction, like, or write down a goal, or like how do you kind of like go about like structuring that?
Mostly it's what I'm feeling.
Yeah.
If it's goal oriented, it'll usually be goal oriented in a behavioral way.
Gotcha.
Like I'm trying to think of an example. Like what I write today. I'm actually blanking on what I wrote today. It was a long day in the market. But, yeah, it'll just be something like, it could be something as simple as, like I really want to trust myself.
Right.
Like I messed up a trade because I listened to so-and-so, or I watched this news article and I doubted myself and I ended up being correct. I want to trust myself. So one thing for me, all right, here's an example. One big thing I've been working on a lot is applying better discipline in times of discomfort. So like with trading, I've been at it for 1.5 years, and which is still very freshman. I mean, that's still very new in the grand scheme. But and I've done well with it, but there still have been so many times where like I just doubted myself, basically shot myself in the foot.
Right.
And I just, upon analyzing, I realized like there's a lot of discipline that I lack when it gets uncomfortable. Like I found myself looking for excuses to like get off. Oh, you're doing badly, or if something's stressful, like maybe I should just go for a swim right now, or take a walk. Sometimes that's good to do when it's legit, but I found myself doing that almost as an excuse to like I'm too anxious to not want to deal with it. So like that day I might write like, okay, my goal is to breathe into this discomfort. If I'm in the middle of something and I'm starting to feel overwhelmed, breathe into that. Be present during that. Realize it's just some fear. It's not like real. And then just apply discipline and stick to your like plan even through all that anxiety and fear.
Right.
And I'm talking about trading, but I think this can be applied in everything and anything.
No, I think it definitely can. And Tyler made like a good point about this, like when he was on the last episode of the podcast, about how you really need to find a way to bring yourself like back to the moment, and like your mind's like naturally gonna wander. And for anyone that doesn't understand what I'm talking about, just go back and watch that. But your mind's like naturally gonna wander, and you have to train yourself and like rewire your mind to essentially bring yourself back to the moment.
Yeah.
And the more you can do that, the more that you're just gonna feel so much better, and you're not gonna be thinking about that trade in the morning or maybe what went on yesterday. And it made a lot of sense, and I'm really like simplifying it. The way he described it was actually like phenomenal. Like there was so much more to it. But I think you're right about that. If you can just like bring yourself like really back,
right?
You're gonna see a lot more success in all aspects of your life.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But so, how long do you end up trading for? Like, do you trade while the entire market's open, or nah?
Yeah, it depends on my style of trading. If there's not a lot of big setups that are like swing trades being trades that you hold for longer than a day.
Right.
It can be a few days, it can be a few weeks. Those are swing trades. Day trades are trades you do within one day. So you buy and you sell in one day. So sometimes there's not a lot set up for swing trades. and all I'll be able to do is just some scalping or some day trading like in the morning. And if that's the case, then I'll trade maybe until like 11 or 12 o'clock, like noon,
Right.
and then I'll just get off.
Yeah.
And I'll come back around 3:30 half an hour before market close, and just see if there's any new setups or anything like that. And that'll be it. So some days I'm off by 11 a.m. Today, for, as an example, there are a good amount of swing trades set up that I'm in or looking to enter. So today I ended up being on all day.
Right.
And it can be a little boring, but again, it's what I like to do. I enjoy. For me, trading is like putting a puzzle together.
Yeah.
So I don't mind it. But yeah, it just depends on the trade. And it depends on what the market's looking and what the setups are looking like.
And what's your ratio between day trading and swing trading? Like, how often do you do either one? Obviously, that's very volatile depending on the setup, but if you had to give like a rough estimate.
Well, it's never on purpose. I'll trade what's there.
Gotcha.
So if for some reason the market was only giving me day trades for a month, I would only do day trades for a month. If there were only swing trades for a month, I would only do swing trades. It's just whatever's there. But just by happenstance, I day trade far more than I swing trade.
Is that just because what you like to do better?
No, it's usually just kind of lands in my lap that way.
Fair enough.
Sometimes in a good way, sometimes in a bad way. Like one of my biggest weaknesses as a trader is definitely not letting my winners run.
I think that's an issue with everyone.
Yeah, so I may have a great entry, and I may see on the big picture, okay, this thing's good to run all the way up to here, and perhaps on that day it runs nicely and it cranks all day long and it goes maybe halfway to my point.
Right.
And I may look and I'll be like, wow, I'm up a lot of money already, and I go and cut it there.
But at the same time, no one's ever lost money taking a profit.
That's absolutely true.
At the same time.
Absolutely true. And this is not advice, but what to me the most appealing way to do it is actually do partial sells. So if you enter here, you get halfway to your
Right.
goal, you can sell half of it.
That makes
and
sense.
Let half of it run, or 3/4 of it lit. So there's a bunch of different ways to do it. But yeah, a lot of times it'll be like that where it'll just like the day trades just present themselves.
Gotcha.
And swing trades just take longer.
As for the swing trades, how do you decide how long you want to hold them? Like, that depends on the chart, obviously, but like, what indicators do you look at where you're kind of like, all right, now's a good time for me to get out, or maybe like, oh, let's hold this another day or two?
Yeah. So for me, it's all about levels first and foremost. So levels of support and resistance.
Gotcha.
Meaning, if stock A, B, C, and D went all the way up to $100 and then it got rejected and it came back down, right? And it's been bouncing, and maybe another time it got up to $100 and then it's bouncing lower again. And say we enter at like $50 and it goes back up to $100. It's been rejected 2 different times at $100. You could draw a line across the 2 times it hit $100, and that's going to create this line. And on the chart, it literally looks like a ceiling. It looks like the stock went up and bounced off the ceiling twice.
Gotcha.
That's a level of resistance because it's been resisting the stock from going any higher.
Right.
So, and the same thing's for support. If a stock goes down to $50 and it bounces at 50 multiple times, that line of $50 is now support.
Gotcha.
So if you enter at say $50 and it runs all the way up to $100. It totally depends on the trade. Each trade is different, but $100 is going to be a significant level,
right?
And that if you got in early, like at $50, that $100 level is probably going to be a really smart place to take your profits,
right?
Or at least partial profits. And then there's other things that go into that too. The more times a stock tests a level like that, the more likely it's going to break it the next time.
Gotcha.
So maybe if it's tested $100 2 times already and it's going for a third time, maybe it's ready to go up to $110 next or something like that.
Right.
So you may, it depends on the setup. Maybe you enter at $100 because now it's once you see it finally breaks past $100, maybe you enter $100. Now it's ready to go up to 120 or 150. That could be your entry.
Right.
Again, it totally depends on the setup. That was a very vague, ugly description, but it just kind of painted the picture of how the lines work.
Right.
So anyway, for me, it'll just be, where is that next line I have as my target for entering and my target for selling at, and then. If I'm swinging, if I'm holding anything over a day, I really try to buy contracts with a month expiration time or more.
So do you have like a favorite chart you look at, maybe first thing in the morning or maybe before you get into a trade? Like, where do you kind of start with that process?
Yeah, so a good rule of thumb, I think, is to start zoomed way out and then work your way in. So I'll always start with the daily chart.
Gotcha.
Which means when you go to the daily, it means you're looking at the entire year to date. And then each candle represents one day.
Gotcha.
And that's a really big picture. That's showing you the big overall movements of everything. And then that's cool because you can draw your lines on the daily chart, and those are your major levels.
Right.
Then you can zoom into the 4 hour, which is similar to the daily, but it's just a little more detailed. You see a little more of the nitty gritty candles in there, and you can see some maybe more subtle lines in between the big lines.
Right.
For smaller term trades or to help support your other lines. And then I zoom into the 1 hour and then the 15 minute. And that's the 15 minutes, probably one of my all time favorites. 1 hour and 15 minute, those two time frames are really good for like the smaller trades. So for an example, you may look in the daily chart and you may see this huge macro wedge, for example. Maybe it's like a bullish wedge, so it's a descending wedge and it's a potentially bullish pattern. But it's the daily chart. It's a year span you're looking at. So you have a long time before it actually breaks out of this wedge and runs.
Right.
But in the meantime, you can zoom into the 1 hour to the 15 minute and you might spot something else. In that wedge, you may spot something really bearish. Maybe like a small ascending wedge that's only maybe 3 days long.
Right.
On the 15 minute. And then you see, okay, that could be a good short right there. And that short could be awesome money in that day or over the course of the week, but in the big picture, it's not a short setup, if that makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. I know exactly what you mean. Huh. That's interesting.
Yeah, basically a good analogy, I guess, would be like the daily chart is like being on an airplane and looking down at the ocean and seeing that body of water and knowing that body of water is what you want to traverse. And then like the 15-minute chart, the 1 hour chart, the 5-minute chart, that's like being like on the actual waves themselves.
Gotcha.
So it's like if you're swimming in the water and you have this big 3-foot wave come, you're going to like ride up and bob with it, or it's going to go over your head and make you cough up water.
Right.
It's going to seem like a pretty good sized wave, so you want to handle that wave accordingly.
Gotcha.
If you're looking at the ocean from 1,000 feet in the sky, though, you won't even be able to see that wave.
Right.
That's kind of what it is. So start off in the sky looking at the daily and then zoom up, and then you can surf the little waves at the surface level.
Right. That makes complete sense.
Yeah.
Let's kind of switch gears a little bit here. So the last time you were on, we talked a lot about how you were kind of moving more towards on, I guess, the outer side of fitness. You wanted to get more towards the trading, and you made a really strong decision, which I've told a lot of people, that you pivoted. Because I've always thought that if you don't replace yourself, you're essentially going to be replaced, which is kind of like why I've always said Apple is one day going to fall, because they just seem to fail to come out with any new products ever since the iPhone. But anyway, what kind of, I guess, business opportunities do you kind of see out there right now? Maybe it can be like big things, big issues, or maybe it can just be like on the smaller end, social media side, that you think could really use a lot of attention and you think really anyone can attack?
Oh, that's a great question. Wow. Huh.
Wow, I didn't expect to stump you there.
Yeah, no, I am. Well, it's very interesting because I feel like so much has already been exposed and like beaten into the ground.
That's the thing, and I was talking about this with someone on one of the podcasts I had. It's like, I feel like it's so easy to go back like 10 years and we could have this exact same conversation.
Right.
But the thing is, like, we look back 10 years and we're like, why didn't we think of that back then?
Yeah.
So I feel like there's always going to be something. So there's definitely something that's out there right now where it's like, that's the next thing that someone is working on somewhere.
I got to be honest. I think if I knew what it was, I probably would be pursuing it right now.
Fair enough.
I really don't know. That's a fantastic question.
So if you guys have any insight on that, any recommendations in the comments, drop one down below. So we'll move on to another business question then.
Okay.
So outsourcing business. This has been I've seen this done a lot of different ways. I've seen people do things where it's kind of like they have 100 people on their team, they employ 100 people, and they don't know any of them. They might know the top, like the COO, the CFO, like the top 3 guys. I've also seen people, like Graham's a great example of this. He has 2 guys help him out, and that channel still brings in millions of dollars every year. I feel like I know which side you've kind of catered towards, but which side do you think is better and why?
I think it's totally up to what the actual business is, honestly. I think if you're able to keep everything small, that's always better.
Right. Less complications.
It's less overhead, less complications, less expense. Well, I guess that is overhead, but yeah, I mean, I think smaller is way better if you can swing it. But I think there are some businesses where you're shooting yourself in the foot by keeping it small when it needs to be bigger.
Obviously, if it's like someone like an Apple, like you can't run that on like 3
yeah,
people.
or even like like an Alphalete.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, that doesn't make
a
sense.
Full warehouse.
Yeah.
So I mean, it totally depends. It totally depends. If you're at a point where you're not getting hindered by any, like you're not treading water trying to keep the business going by yourself or with the small team you have, if everything's running nice and smooth, I think keeping it small is better. It's just It's less opinions. It's just simpler. It's more streamlined.
Yeah, you don't want to have too many cooks in the kitchen.
Exactly. But if the business is big enough or demanding enough or has so many moving parts where you simply need more people on it,
right?
And you're trying to keep it small because you don't want to spend the money or whatever the case may be. Well, then, yeah, obviously you're hindering growth for your business.
I think it might, and I just thought of this, it might also depend a little bit on the person too, because there's guys like Christian, I think is a good example, who will just stay up 3 days in a row and not even blink, which I still don't understand how that's possible.
Yeah, he's crazy.
But then there's guys who they're like, I want to get to the office at 7, I want to work till 5 or 6, and I want to go home to my family.
Yeah.
Those type of businesses might need more overhead, more people.
Yeah, right. Yeah, no, you're right. Well, it's funny. Like, I don't think there's one size fits all for any of it. Like, Christian doesn't sleep and works like a madman and has like 100,000 employees.
I don't even understand how that's possible.
I know. Well, his business is huge and he's smart. So he's a visionary. So he's constantly up working on his own vision, producing it, and then also overseeing all of it too. He's very hands-on with it.
Right.
But at the same time, it's so big where he needs a fully staffed warehouse. He needs a design team. He needs everything, a social media team. He needs people to run his other side businesses like his gyms and stuff like that. So, I mean, that's crazy. So I think, but Max, on the other hand, you look at Max Tuning, he's an example of someone who's a visionary as well and very hands-on, but has kept it streamlined enough where he doesn't have 1 million employees. He has Mona as his main right hand, and then he hires people for the warehouse and stuff like that, but nowhere near the staff that Christian has. So he's kept it really small. So again, it's just, I think it depends on the person, like you said.
Yeah.
Some people don't want to be as hands-on. They just want to fund it. They have the idea, they want to fund it, and they want to pay others to do it for them.
Right.
And if that's still profitable, then that's nothing wrong with that. And some people really, it's their baby. They want to be hands-on, and they just need more people to help them do it. So,
what have you done in the past?
I've always been very independent with it. It's always been me. I've gotten to the point where I've wanted to hire at least like one person, and then like it would be, I just had a hard time figuring out who to like trust and all that. And
it's tough, especially the first guy. I feel like the first guy is always the hardest.
Yeah, and being in my house at the time, I'd been looking at expanding, but at the time, I'm talking about Made Athletics, by the way. At the time, it was cranking, and by this big basement, it was all filled up with everything, and I did everything down there. And so, you're hiring someone to work in your house and come and go in your house, which is kind of tough. But no, for me, honestly, it was at the point where, I had to be up and working a lot, but it was manageable for me to do by myself.
How hectic was that clothing brand? Or just like apparel in general, maybe not your specific brand.
It can get hectic. I always enjoyed it.
Really?
I always liked it because I started off working when I was 14 years old, and I did everything from dishwashing to cooking to construction, masonry work, you name it, I've done it all. And so once I started doing YouTube, I love that more than anything, but there would be times where I kind of missed like doing stuff with my hands, feeling productive with my hands. So even though packaging clothing isn't like hard work, I actually liked it. I like going through the orders, handling the customer service, printing out everything, going down to the basement, packaging everything, getting everything all set up in the bins, doing the inventory. Like, I enjoyed doing all that.
Even like the manufacturer part of it, like contacting them?
That part's always kind of boring. Like, it's fun coming up with the design ideas, and it's fun giving them to your graphics designer and then having them come back and like you go back and forth until you get it perfect. That part's always fun. Placing the order is never that exciting. When I outsourced overseas, I'd have to go into the bank to do a wire. Whenever I got it domestic, it was much easier. You just order it. And then, of course, transporting. There'd be times where I would get it transported through sea, and I'd have to drive to Boston. I'd have to rent a truck, drive to Boston to go pick it up.
That sounds annoying.
I didn't do that most of the time, but there's just a couple of times where I had to, and that was very annoying. And then I'd haul all these boxes from my car down to my basement. That part's not that fun.
Yeah, that does not sound fun.
But the normal day-to-day operations of it, I really liked.
Yeah? Huh. See, it's something I've toyed around with the idea with, not like now, but like in the future. And I just think about it, and I'm like, I just hate clothes.
I do too. That's why I stopped. Like,
I mean, like, I can't tell you the last time I bought new clothes.
Yeah.
Like, I probably had this shirt for like 5 years.
Yeah.
Like, I legitimately, every time I go to the mall, I hate buying clothes. Like, I hate trying them on. And I used to kind of like them, like a little bit, like in my early 20s. Mm-hmm. I hate shopping for clothes. Like, if I stay the same figure, the same body weight the rest of my life, there's a very good chance I will never buy another shirt. That's probably unrealistic because I'll probably need a nice shirt for something at some point or another. But I just hate the whole process of it.
My thing, I don't hate it that much, but I'm very lazy with it. I like clothes, but I'm like, I never think of going out and getting them. Like whenever I do go get clothes, I'm like, oh, this is awesome. And I like when I get to dress up, but I'm just lazy. Like and I have so many clothes for free, so I just like, I'm lazy with it. But I definitely didn't like making it. Like I'm not a visionary for clothing. That's one thing I learned very quickly when I was doing the clothing line. That's ultimately why I shut down the clothing line. It's just not for me. I am not a visionary when it comes to clothing brands.
That's another thing that I kind of look at with myself. Like I feel like that first launch could be really good because it's new, but to keep upgrading that over so many years, I don't think I could keep up with.
Dude, that's terrifying. That would stress me out so much.
I was stressed out just thinking about it, and I have literally not taken one step towards that. I was already stressed out about it.
That's why. That's why I like the stock market, because you're your own boss still, but you don't have to be a visionary. Everything's laid out for you. You just got to show up to the screen and do it.
Right.
So
here's one interesting question. This is kind of completely changing topics here, but I have this theory, and this is going to go towards schools. I'm sure everyone watching this is not going to completely agree with this, but I have this theory that schools, although they do a lot of good, I feel like they do a lot of bad things as well. Because I feel like you go to school, you're sitting in a classroom, you're basically answering to someone. Like, if you don't get this grade on this test, like, you don't pass this class, you have to come back again. They're always being told what to do. Can I go to the bathroom? Can I go to the nurse? All these different things. I feel like schools are almost setting kids up to be in line, like be a duck in a row for like the rest of their lives. And I feel like that's why everyone's like, I need to find a job. And they feel depressed when they can't find a job. How do you kind of feel about that whole, I guess, I don't want to say analogy, but theory, and what do you think could really be implemented to really get the best out of students? Because I kind of feel like there should be more things where it's like, don't worry about this calculus exam, don't worry about this history test. And some of those things are important. I do think they should be taught. But I also think there should definitely be kind of like a fine line where it's like, find something you love and find a way to make money off of it and support yourself that way.
Yeah. So personally, I hate school. I despise it. I always have. That's why I never went to college. And I did just enough to get by and pass high school. I hated school. For a lot of the reasons you just said. Now, objectively, I'm not trying to vilify school. I don't think it's all bad. And
there's definitely some good.
Yeah, and I think college can be a great tool for you depending on what your career is. If you want to be in the medical field, for example, then obviously, yeah, you want to go all the way in on college and schooling, for sure. But like you said, though, I feel like people also, as for as many people use school as a tool to really get where they're going, like in the medical field, there's so many people that just go to school because they don't know what else to do, and it's the safe and secure thing that they're always told they had to do to go anywhere in life.
It's a comfort zone.
Yeah, it's a comfort zone, and then they end up wasting a lot of money, or if they go to community college, they usually, not everybody, but a lot of times they end up not even going in the direction of what they went to school for, or if they do, it's not like they love their job, like you said.
Right.
They may have, you may have gotten your degree, you may have gotten a job with it, but they're miserable and they hate their lives all the time. I personally I taught myself everything. I taught myself trading, fundamentals, technical analysis, the stock market. I taught myself everything about crypto. I taught myself everything about programming for training back when I was into powerlifting. I taught myself nutritional science, because I was interested in it.
Right.
And everything's online. And you don't want to just go by someone's opinion online. I'm not saying go read, Joe Schmo's video on what he thinks the right answer is, but you can look up the fundamentals behind everything online.
Everything's figure-outable.
Everything. Online. Nutritional science. Oh, you heard this guy likes keto. You heard this guy likes paleo. Go step way back from all that. Look at the fundamentals. What is a calorie? How does a calorie work? What is a carbohydrate? How does a carbohydrate work? Look up the fundamentals of how everything works. And it's all there. And I taught myself everything just from studying my ass. And I do study my ass off, dude. There's notebooks filled up with like the color tabs on every side on finance stuff, trading. And I'm at it. I still do. I'm studying every chance I get. And I treat it like college. But yeah, I don't like the structure of school. I don't know what the answer is. I'm not arrogant enough to try and say I'm smart enough to know what the alternative should be or what they should do differently, because I don't. I can't even begin to tell you how to tackle a young child's growing mind. I know children are sponges, so you want to teach them young. I don't know what the alternative is, but I do agree with you that I think the school system, at least in the U.S., is very, very flawed. I don't think they do a fantastic job on it. And I'm not saying it's the teacher's fault. Sometimes it is. Sometimes the teachers do better jobs than others. But I think it's the whole structure of school in general in this country is not great at all.
Yeah, I agree on all accounts. Like, although I don't like how things are done, I don't know how it could be made better.
Right.
You know what I mean? I feel like that's a problem. I do think there should be, maybe instead of teaching every single kid calculus, maybe you could teach them something about, I don't know, finance or taxes, something you're going to have to use regardless of what career path you take.
And in a realistic way. And it's really odd, like, I don't know what the answer for this would be either, because some of it's just tough. Like, some of it is just simply that, kids don't want to learn. They want to be outside having fun. I don't know how you get around that. Like, history, for example. I never failed history. I got, like, C's in it because it was just so boring to me at the time. But now I find myself taking a huge interest in history. I'm not a whiz, so don't quiz me on it. But I find myself just like going out of my way to like learn just random things that I probably learned back in high school and just forgot about. But now it's interesting to me.
Yeah.
And just like there's a lot of things that like foreign languages. We shrugged off foreign languages at school. I would love to learn a foreign language now, like as an adult. Like there's so many things that I appreciate now that we got taught in school that I just didn't care about back in school. So I guess the question to answer would be like, is there a way to make teaching that stuff more fun for kids? Maybe make it more applicable to real life? Is that even possible with a kid? And then if so, how? But like I said, I don't pretend to have the answers on how exactly to go about it. I just know I'm personally not a fan of how it's structured.
It's tough, and I think it would depend on what subject you wanted to explore, because think of like math, for example. Like you don't start with like calculus. Like you start with like addition, subtraction.
Yeah.
So you might have to start like really break down whatever topic, whether it's finance, taxes, business, whatever the topic is. You might have to really break it down and essentially start at grade 1. Like you might have to start with like the dollar.
Yeah.
And then maybe grade 12's like how to invest in stocks.
Yeah,
like which I mean would be good, but essentially it'd have to be like a whole curriculum. They couldn't be like, I don't think there's a single class where a kid's really going to sit in and learn like a ton.
Right. Yeah, I think it would be definitely a good idea to start, like the charting example, start zoomed out with the big picture of things.
Exactly. Like work backwards.
Yeah, create like an activity that just shows money circulation somehow.
Yeah.
And how some people have more, some have less, and then show like how inflation works. But like through some very basic, simple like example, like an activity that makes it stick in their head.
Yeah.
Because the other thing is too, like we learn now, like I'll find myself trying to do quick math in my head, and I'll find myself going back to things that I was definitely taught in high school. But it's like I'll have to like sometimes Google it or get the calculator out because I just can't remember how to do certain things.
Right.
Like on the fly. And so I'm like, well, I learned this, but it was useless because 10 years later, 12 years later, however long I've been out of high school, I don't remember it at all. But like, what I think you might remember is learning at least the bare basics. So if you teach, some economics to a kid in school, when they're 25 years old, are they going to remember the exact details on how yield rates work and how yield rates affect inflation in the U.S.? No, maybe not. Right. But they might remember the big picture that, okay, our banks can create 9 times the amount of money they have.
Right.
And keep that in mind.
Right.
And like you might remember like a basic picture of that, which could help you.
Right.
And then from there, if you're like, all right, let me Google this again. I got to relearn this stuff. At least now you have like that floor to stand on to get started with.
Right. You have that like initial background
information. And I feel like schools didn't do that. I feel like schools have this laid out like checklist almost of, all right, we're going to teach you this level of math the next year, this level the next year, this level, but it's like, I don't know. It all seems very zoomed in and overly detailed sometimes and just in ways that don't stay applicable or retained very well.
Right. I just feel like some of the like things they teach you are important because obviously people need like, I think history is kind of important. I think, you need some level of math, like English, all these things. But the level they take it, I'm like, majority of people aren't going to use that for the rest of your life. And I feel like that's what really school should be about, to really, at least high school, really like build that foundation and really find their interest. I guess at the end of the day, I also feel like kids should have more freedom to decide what they want to explore in high school. Because when I got to high school, when I went to college, I had no idea what I wanted to go to school for. So I was that prime example. Like I was just throwing money away. I was just going to go to school. Like I had nothing. And I feel like looking back, that was not a good idea.
No, I refused to do that when I got out of high school. And I fought with it for a while because I felt like a bum. It was probably me just projecting my own insecurities.
Well, and all your
about it,
friends
but-
around you are going to school. That doesn't help
Exactly.
either.
So
Like,
so I felt like everyone was judging me. Like,
Yeah.
what are you doing with your life? No one actually said anything, but that's what I felt like. But I stuck to my guns on it. I was like, I know what I want to do, and it does not involve school. And I did not like school. And I finished high school for my parents because I'm glad I did now as an adult. But back in the day, like I wanted to drop out of high school because I hated it. And the funny thing was, excluding math, I was just genuinely not good at math. But with everything else, I can always like turn it up and pass the second I needed to. Like if we're like, oh, you're failing, okay, let me hit the gas and like apply myself for a minute
Right.
and pass. So it's not even like it was like over my head. It was just, I thought it was just so useless and boring. Some of it, not all of it, but most of it. Like I wish they had given us like I wish we learned about taxes and like running a business, starting an LLC.
yeah, that's the thing.
Investing, things like that.
That's what I'm saying, because those are things like that are. I mean, I guess you can go with like the business. Maybe that's not essential, but like I think it's important. I think it should be taught. But like investing, like taxes, those are things that you're gonna have to learn whether you like it or not. Like that's just like how this country works.
And I do remember there was like an economics class that we had that did go over a little bit of that. Like I remember how like learning how to write a check, but it was just an elective, so it wasn't like a main course. It wasn't required, and it wasn't very long either.
Yeah,
so,
I think I might know what class you're talking about. Because
Yeah,
I think I
forget
took a
the name
701.
of it. Yeah.
But yeah, I also don't like how school starts so early.
Yeah.
Because, and I just finished Matthew Walker's book again. He talks about how like when you're like that age, your circadian rhythm actually is 1 to 3 hours essentially behind in adults. So say you get up at 5 every day. That's when like your brain turns on. That's when you're ready to go. That's like the same thing as like a high schooler maybe starting their day at 8 a.m.
Yeah.
So what he asked in the book, and this will probably make more sense, how would you feel essentially starting your day at 2:30 in the morning?
Right.
Like, and that's why he's like, it doesn't make sense to start schools that early. And he's like, the reason that they start early, because many years ago they used to start at 9 o'clock, I think he said. But the reason they ended up starting so early was because parents need to drop off their kids, and it just worked better with like, this schedule that the parents were working.
Yeah, I thought it was something to do with that.
Yeah, but it's like crazy to think about, and that really put a lot into perspective for me, because now it's like I'll get up at like 5, 6, I'm like ready to go, like wide awake. But back then, if you told me I had to get up at 6, like it was like on the weekend, it was like, what are you, nuts?
I don't even know how I did it back then. I look back, I'm like, how did I do that every single day?
It's insane.
Because I'm not a morning person, so like I said, I get up at 8, so like, you know, if I get up at 6, I'll put on my adult pants and do it, but I don't enjoy it. So like, whenever I do have to get up at 6, I'm like, how did I do this every single day back in high school?
Oh, I actually really do like getting up early in the morning.
No, I get that. I get that. I mean, I'm a night person, so I used to stay up till like 2 in the morning, get up at like 11 every morning.
Right.
So for me, 8's like new territory, but
that's a perfect example, because you used to get up at 11.
Yeah,
and as
right.
you got older,
Right.
your circadian rhythm was just able to backtrack. Now you can get up at 8.
yeah, and it feels good. I mean, like I might move it even earlier soon. It feels good getting up early. So your point stands.
I like love getting up early and like going running in the morning. Like it's actually so peaceful. Like no one's around, like
Yep.
no one's awake. Like just being on the road running at like 6 o'clock in the morning, it's like perfect.
Yeah,
And I know that's
yeah.
not for everyone, but it's just like I just enjoy it so much, just getting that early morning sunlight.
Yeah, man, no, it's beautiful. Like I said, it's not 6, but still meditating at 8 on the ocean
When the sun's
before
like,
everyone's up.
It's
Oh,
beautiful, beautiful, beautiful.
crazy.
Now, so I guess we'll stick on the same topic of school. So education-wise, obviously we can both agree education's important in some way, shape, or form.
Mm-hmm.
And you're kind of always learning one way or the other, whether you know it or not. And it's always important to be learning. Like, for example, I took a course on how I could really make better YouTube videos and that type of nature, and it really inspired this podcast. So sometimes you can just like hit a nerve and it causes like an epiphany. How much time do you spend learning, and really how do you learn?
I'm studying constantly. Like I literally have notebooks that I use to write everything down in, and then I'll go and transfer them over into my big notebook, and I do it all with hand. I don't like typing. I have documents too, but I like writing. I write in cursive, so it's like it looks really cool at the end of it.
Right.
But no, always, man, always. I'm constantly studying. I think it's super important. I guess I should make it clear. I think the education system, the way it's structured, is flawed, but educating yourself,
Oh, yeah, definitely.
is
Yeah.
infinitely important. So, no, I mean, always. I don't time it. I couldn't tell you how many hours it is, but I mean, any chance I get, I'm trying to take notes. I'll either have YouTube on at like 1.25 speed, listen to someone break down something, taking notes on that, or I'll just be reading something, taking notes on that.
Right.
And then when I transfer it into the other notebook, that's a good way to like recycle it in your head again to make it even clearer.
Right.
And so I'm always trying to like I basically try to act like I'm in college basically.
Do you,
as far as how often I'm studying and taking notes?
What do you spend most of your time learning? Is it just trading right now? Or?
Yeah. It's just various different aspects of economics in general. So some of it will be very specific to trading. Whether it's fundamental analysis, technical analysis related things. Some of it will be a little bit broader, the federal government and inflation, yields, repos, reverse repos, things like that.
Yeah.
It can go all over the place. Some of it will be very broad economics. Like one time, just for fun, sometimes I'll just think of things and I'll be like, that's interesting. I want to learn more about that. Like one time I wrote down like a whole chapter of notes just on art, the art industry, and how art is used as a tax leverage for rich people.
Is it really?
Yeah, it's crazy. There's like a whole lot of stuff that goes into it. So like that was like eye opening.
How does that work?
If there's a few different ways they get into it, but like it depends. Some people use it for profit. Some people use it as tax leverage. But one of the things people will do to avoid taxes on it actually will be they'll buy it and they'll put it into like one of these like offshore ports. That's like an in-transit port where you can store things for up to a year. And it'll be right here in the U.S. It'll be like on like the shore basically. There's a name for it, but I'm blanking on the name. This was a while ago I took these notes, but and it wasn't that important to my life. But there's a name for it, and it's one of these transit ports where basically if you ship something overseas, the ships have to come in, they unload the cargo to these ports, and they wait for the cargo to be delivered to its destination. Well, you can store stuff in these ports for up to 12 months. And while it's in these ports, even though it's here in the U.S., it could be right in your own city, it's considered in transit and it's not taxed.
Really?
So, yeah.
Wow.
So you can buy something and have it in one of those ports for up to a year and you won't get taxed. And then after a year, it'll be long-term capital gains, so you'll have less taxes. And then there was a bunch of other cool things that went into how they hedged against taxes with it and stuff like that. But I'd want to relook at those notes again before I went and butchered it because this was honestly taken a long time ago, and it was one of those things I just learned for fun because I don't have any art.
This sounds like familiar. Maybe it was like Graham was making a video on this like a while ago, or maybe he talked about it on his podcast. Because that sounds vaguely familiar. I can't put anything into context, but that does sound super familiar. Huh.
Yeah, I know. If anyone's ever watched the show Billions, Bobby Axelrod did that with one of his paintings.
I've never watched that show.
Oh, it's a really good show. You like it?
I'll check it out. So I guess moving more, kind of a different train track, kind of the similar one. Goal setting is important, like we talked about earlier. Like early on, you kind of have the goals you set for yourself for the year, 6 months, whatever the case may be. How do you go about structuring your goals? Like, do you set short-term goals, long-term goals, and really just how do you set them?
Yeah, I think the best way to set goals is to have one big long-term goal in general and then have a bunch of short-term goals that'll help you get there. Because what I've noticed is if you have just a long-term goal, you'll be motivated for that goal for a little bit. And then when the going gets tough on your way to that goal, you might lose some momentum. You might kind of flake out on it.
Right.
So what you need is short-term goals to aim for, maybe next week, maybe next month. And that'll keep you extra excited and motivated and hungry to chase that goal that's right in front of you. And it'll keep you moving full speed ahead. And then once you hit that goal, you're going to feel excited, elation, and you're going to feel confidence to move on to the next goal. And as you keep working up these ladders, eventually you make it to the biggest goal. And on the flip side of that, if you're just someone who only has short-term goals and no big long-term goal, I think the same sort of thing can happen where you lose sight of a big picture or a bigger reason as to why, and you might start slacking on the short-term goals.
Right. When you started your YouTube channel, what were some of your short-term and long-term goals, if you can remember? Like, I'm talking like when you first started.
Yeah, so they were really big picture, generalized. Like, I never had a map laid out for a business plan, but the big ones were to become famous off of it in the realm of natural team bodybuilding.
Right.
So like I didn't think that would make me mainstream famous, but I wanted to be like the most well-known natural team bodybuilder at the time.
Right.
And so that was a big one. So that inspired me just to create a ton of awesome content and put myself out there. Another one was to become monetized, which back in this day, it wasn't like YouTube is now, where it's much easier you can monetize almost anything.
Right.
Back then, you had to apply to YouTube partnership, and or they'd reach out to you, but you had to become a legit YouTube partner. And so a goal was to get that going.
Right.
And initially, not even so I could quit my job. I figured I wouldn't be making enough to quit my job or anything, but just it would start me in that direction where I could be making money from YouTube, and I thought that would have been so cool. So those are like my two big ones when I first started YouTube.
Did you ever think it would turn into what it turned into?
Yes and no. Like, because I had that big goal in my head of becoming the most well-known YouTuber and to be paid from it. Yeah, in the back of my head, I always knew, without consciously thinking about how, I always knew that, I was going to make something of myself.
Yeah.
Basically, I had a big dream, and I was very confident in that it would happen. Could I have told you at the time that I planned out the exact way it would go, the exact timeline? No, obviously not.
I don't think anyone can tell you that, though. Like, I can't tell you, like, Mark Zuckerberg, when he started planning out or started coding for Facebook back in his dorm room, that he was going to turn into what it is today.
Yeah, but I was very confident, though. I was confident in the dream I had, and I was confident that I would make something of myself with it and go where, hence not going to college. I mean, I bet all of it. So,
what were some of the goals you had for 2021, and how have you been doing with those?
Let's see. 2021, man, 2021 is probably the first year where I've taken a lot of things in stride, just because there's been so many shifts.
Right.
Especially after 2020, which was such a wacky year. Becoming profitable in trading was definitely one of them, which I did in 2021. Let's see. Becoming profitable in trading was one. What's funny is I didn't necessarily have a timeline for wanting to get off YouTube, but I did. I just had one of my goals, for at least in the nearest future, was to let trading take over and for me to finally get off YouTube.
I was surprised you actually did that, because I noticed you posting less and less. And what I thought it was going to turn into was like, all right, you know what? Screw the views. I don't need this money. I thought it was going to turn into, I'm literally just going to post this like one video a month or one video every couple of weeks, just because I like doing it, like just for the enjoyment aspect of it. Not even like fitness related, but maybe it'd be like vlog related, or granted, I don't know how much you were doing with the world shutdown, but something like that. That's what I kind of thought it was going to turn into. But you really just said, forget it.
Yeah, because I think leading up to me getting off YouTube, I was kind of actually doing what you just said. If you go and look at my upload schedule, it wasn't very frequent. There are windows where I went back to doing like one video a month, but then there'd be one video a week. But there'd be periods of time where I'd do like one video a month almost.
Right.
So I was already kind of doing that, just posting when I wanted. And I'm not a huge fan of vlogging these days. I really liked the lifting content when I did it. And the biggest thing for me was I wanted my channel. It was two things. One was more egotistical. The other one was more relevant. But the egotistical one was I wanted my channel to leave off with some dignity.
Right.
I had already had the views declining like crazy, which some could argue is like, you already lost that chance to go out with dignity. But if you ever get into creating something and doing it for a living and becoming known from it, you'll understand, like, it's a passion. It's also an obsession, and it's also just all you know. It's what you know. It's like you can't picture not doing it.
Right.
So it's hard to just like walk away from something like that. It's your life.
Yeah,
it's my life for a decade.
It's like retiring after 30 years. Like
exactly.
a job. Like the same exact thing.
Exactly. And so that was one side of it. So I didn't want to, for the first time ever, my channel definitely slowed way down on gaining subscribers a while back, but it was still trickling upward. For the first time ever, it actually went down. It went from 142,000 to 141,000. And, it might have been just over 142, so that might have only been like 100 subscribers.
You mean 242?
Like yeah.
I know that better than you.
Yeah, you do. Okay. It went from 242 to 241. That might have only been like 100 subscribers for all I remember. I can't remember. I think there might have been a video that I put up that triggered it too. I forget what it was. There was one video I put up that didn't go over well for people. I forget what it was, and that might have sparked it. But anyway, it was just like a good warning. I was like, I didn't want to turn my channel into like a parody of itself,
right?
And have like the subscribers start falling off left and right, and just like watch it actually die,
right? I
was like, it's healthy. It still brought in amazing sponsorships. That was the biggest thing I had to fight with, despite what people might think, because my viewership was very loyal. Even if it was smaller, the sponsorships I was getting were insane. I was getting like the most high paying offers, I think, the month I quit than I had ever gotten, which is crazy.
Is there any particular reason why that month?
It was just the last few months leading up to it. It was just that I was like on a roll. It's kind of like riding a wave.
Interesting.
I don't know. It was nuts. It was crazy, and it was working too. Like sometimes, a lot of times I do flat rate fees, you know, and you don't see how it performs.
Yeah.
You just know if they don't hit you up again, then maybe it didn't perform that well.
Right.
And I was always I said no. You guys would be shocked if you saw how many emails I said no to. I mean, it's like 1 in 99 I would accept. It was like, because a lot of it was bullshit. And I recognized that my viewers were loyal, and I valued that over anything else. And that was another reason I wanted to get off the channel, too. I wanted to leave them with good content.
Right.
I wanted to leave a good taste in everyone's mouth. And I didn't want to go off as like that guy who just totally sold out and became desperate, you know?
Right.
So I'd only do things that I really liked, you know, like those energizing protein packets, like those sick. Like I had those even after I got off YouTube.
Never tried those, but
no, they're amazing.
Pretty good.
Even after I got off YouTube, I still had those because they were amazing. Like they're wicked easy. You have them that you just pop it in your mouth and you have energy and it's protein. Like it's great for post workout. So something like that. Like that makes. I legitimately had those. I kept having those come even after I was done with YouTube.
Right.
Something like that. Something that makes sense. You know, slingshot equipment that I really use for real.
Yeah.
But so some companies though, I would also get commission and I would see the orders and I mean. The sales and the commissions were just like insane at times. Yeah. So, I mean, I think it was, you know, I only put stuff that I really liked out there. So I think that's why it made sense.
Like that steak company.
Yeah, like the Piedmontese. I still use Piedmontese. Yeah. Like every time my cousin came over, I was like, let me cook you this steak. It's like, I like showing off the steak whenever I can. That one I don't even get paid for, actually.
Really?
No, I don't get paid for that one.
Don't you have an affiliate link?
Yeah, and so I just literally told him, I was like, I'll share it around just for the steak.
Huh. It's not a bad deal. I mean, you get food.
That one proves I like the steak.
Yeah.
Because if I didn't like the steak, I wouldn't want the steak.
Yeah. Why would you even take it?
So yeah, that one's not even money.
That's interesting.
But yeah, man. So the biggest thing was I just I didn't want it to. I wanted to leave the channel with dignity. I wanted to leave like on a great note, which I think I did. The last video I put up was my favorite video I think I've ever made in my life, and. The second reason, which is more important, I think, is that I had to get out of a comfort zone. For me to stay doing YouTube, even just here and there, it's like keeping one foot in the door.
Yeah.
And when you're doing something that's brand new, it's scary. And trading itself is scary to get into and learn.
Right.
And it's very easy to run away from that without even realizing you're running away from it and running back to an old comfort zone.
Right.
Which is what the gym was also for me as well.
You don't lift at all anymore, right?
Just at home, I'll do like my basic like prison workout. Like I have 30-pound and 40-pound dumbbells. So I'll do like my little like shoulder raises, curls, some tricep stuff, push-ups, sit-ups, that sort. Just to stay healthy. I'll do that like once a week.
But you don't have any desire to like, I guess, go back to the gym at all?
No, not at all.
Really?
No.
That surprises me because although my powerlifting days are long behind me, I'm very well into retirement here. I'd still... A couple days go by, I'm like, all right, I really want to go to the gym today.
Yeah.
Like, and you really don't have that desire at all.
Never.
Really?
Never. I have to make myself do the home workouts.
Maybe it's because that was like your life, as opposed to me, it was just like a hobby. So maybe you're just kind of burnt out.
I think that was it. Maybe a little burnt out. And the thing is, I don't think I'm burnt out from physically training at like itself, but I think my thing was going to the gym and training was so intertwined with work for me.
Yeah.
Like, because at first I was going to like back off YouTube and still go to the gym, and I realized pretty quickly like I can't do it.
Yeah.
Like I go to the gym and suddenly I start tempted like maybe I should just film this stuff. Maybe I should just focus on an Instagram post, make Instagram videos while I'm here.
Right.
Like I could not separate from it.
Yeah.
And so what I had to do is like, all right, I got to get away from the gym, YouTube, everything, all of it. I have to go cold turkey from all of this and get out of this comfort zone.
Right.
And what I think will happen eventually is, I think it's already starting to happen, but I think I'll get to a point where I've had enough time to detach from that, and I will be able to go back to the gym and not have it be mentally associated with work anymore.
Right, it just takes time.
Yeah. Plus, the other thing, too, I'm at a beach house, man. Like, I don't want to leave a beach house and drive and take 4 hours out of my day to go to the gym.
Yeah.
Like, you got a 90-degree day. Like, I have waterfront, like, in my front step. I don't want to, like,
yeah, right. Like, that makes a lot of sense, especially in the summer.
But I do think I'm burnt out just because I don't even have an urge to do, like, the basic calisthenic stuff at home. I think I did it as a job and a livelihood and a lifestyle so hard for 15 years or whatever.
It's just, like, tough to, like, even rationalize doing it.
Tomorrow will be 5 months out of the gym for me.
Wow.
5 months. Ooh.
I think Josh was talking to me about this the other day. He was like, I don't know if Nick's ever coming back here. I'm like, yeah, I don't know either. Like, to be honest.
I was thinking about that today, actually. I mean, in reality, I imagine at some point I'll return to the gym. It's just, there's a lot of moving parts. Like I said, I need to get out of the burnout. I need to make sure I'm totally disassociated with YouTube and all that. You know, once Well, I think I'm already in that place now, moving into it. But like, I think once I've been like profitable and regularly trading for like a long, long time,
Yeah.
and I'm just like, I'm no longer viewing myself as just a new trader. Like, trading is what I do, and that's just locked into my head.
Right.
Then maybe I'll probably be good to, now I can go work out for myself for the first time ever.
Even like, I still, to this day, I will not deadlift or squat. Like, I literally am so, like, just mentally fried. Like, squatting, I think I would do. Like, there are some days I do have a little bit of an itch to go and squat again. Bench, I'll do. I bench every now and then. But, like, deadlift, I haven't deadlifted. I haven't touched the, oh my God, I haven't done that in probably like 3 years.
Yeah.
At least.
You know what the other thing is, too? That's probably me just being a little, but, I'm also, stress is too strong of a word. I don't get stressed about this sort of thing, but like, I'm also like, okay, if I go back to the gym and I just want to do nice, easy recreational training, I'm going to have to deal with every human in there being like, first off, making, oh, welcome back, that whole thing, like, wow, you're back.
You just got to go to a different gym.
It's going to be a spectacle. And then everybody, oh, you're not competing anymore? You're done lifting? You're ever going to powerlift again? Oh, you should get back on the horse. And, like, I'm not mad. I'm not talking shit. Like, I love the fact that everyone in that gym is so supportive like that.
Yeah.
Because they are. It's a family over in that gym. I love every
Right.
single person in there. But I'm saying for me now, you know, it's like the champion fighter returning to his old gym he trained at after hiatus and just doing, like, the heavy bag for cardio and nothing else.
Yeah.
It's like everyone's gonna, because I already experienced it the few times I'd pop in there, you know, if I was training Aiden or something like that.
Yeah.
So that's the other thing too. Like, I've thought about that. I'm like, I love my family over there, but then at the same time, I almost want to go to a gym where no one knows me. But I wouldn't. Ultimate Fitness is always my gym. If I return, it'll be to Ultimate Fitness because it's a badass gym.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you ever go back to the gym, you're going to have to experience that at some point. Unless you wait like years and everyone's gone. Which I don't know if you're going to do that, but that's probably the only way.
It won't be a big deal. It's just kind of a funny thing I was thinking about. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to have to like...
What kind of goals do you have set for 2022? Or have you not even dug into that yet? Because we're actually almost at the end of 2021, believe it or not.
How wild is that? We're like halfway through.
I feel like it was January yesterday.
I know.
Like literally like yesterday.
Yeah, it flew by, man. I don't have any specific... Honestly, man, I've been so engrossed in trading and trying to become a better trader that my goal is constantly just to become a better trader.
Right.
So obviously make more money each fiscal year, each month.
Right.
And be better at what I'm doing. Try to constantly fix the weaknesses I have as a trader.
Right.
Which is a constant 24-hour day mental... I don't want to say battle, but it's mental work.
Right.
But it's fun. I like it. That's honestly where my head's at. You know, longer term goals, I have them. You know, acquire more property down the line. Definitely not in this housing market. Things like that. But no, I honestly right now, I'm so zoned in to this process and this goal of trading and becoming better at it that's all in front of me right now.
Right. Now that's a good transition for the next thing I want to ask you. So I feel like there's so many people out there that have this scarcity mindset. Whether like some people are like, I can't become a millionaire. Some people are like, I can't do that. I don't know how to do it. And I have a very good friend. I'm very transparent with him. And I was having a conversation with him this weekend. And we were talking about, I'm like, yeah, dude, I want to be like a multimillionaire. I want to make like millions on millions. And when I die, I want to give like the majority of it to charity. And he's like, that's literally not possible. And I'm just like, that's not the right mindset to have. Even if it's not possible, like you should still shoot for it, I feel like.
Yeah.
Why do you think so many people have that scarcity mindset?
A lot of it is who they're raised by and who they're around.
That's a really good point.
And sometimes it can be very black and white. Like if you're around people that are all broke and living check to check and in debt. And I'm not saying, I'm not saying working 9 to 5s isn't anything bad at all. But I'm saying people that literally just actively are bad at budgeting.
Yeah, that's tough.
Put 2 moments of thought into their own finances. You know, they literally just don't even try in that area. If you're around that and they're constantly broke, that's going to become normal for you. That's going to be what you know and experience.
Right.
But some of it's how you're raised too. I had amazing parents. I'm so grateful for the parents I had. And my dad is amazing. My dad's done very well for himself. He's getting close to retirement. And I mean, I'm proud of him for what he's accomplished for himself now later in life, but he did it in traditional ways as far as going to school, getting a good degree, getting a good job,
right.
and crazy work ethic. I mean, he's worked his ass off. We've had hard times as a family too
right.
in the past where things were a little scary and tight.
Right.
And he would be busting his ass. He'd get some job that he hated. He lost a couple of fingers to it before.
Ooh, that doesn't sound fun.
Just to keep the lights on and stuff like that. But eventually through that hard work, he'd made his way back up into good positions again. And so he's done very, very well for himself. But it was always in different avenues than the way I've gone.
Right.
It's always to clock in and clock out and have a boss and have a set schedule and something to follow. The 9-to-5 life.
Right.
And it's done wonderfully for him. I'm trying to do very well for myself, but in a way that's not as structured. It's not through college. It's not with the 9-to-5.
Right.
You got to have a different mentality and you got to think differently. And just because I wasn't raised like that, because they just weren't in that entrepreneurial lifestyle, there's been times where it's felt like a complete uphill battle for me to try and rewire my brain to become more like that.
Right.
Like I found myself even holding myself back. And it's funny. In a perfect example, I'm going to try to keep this short and sweet because I'm excited about this topic, but a perfect example, man, for a while, before I ever went out and hung out with Christian Guzman and Max, I was all right with money. I had my own apartment or whatever. I was 21, 22. But I wasn't caking. I wasn't making anything crazy yet. And I hung out with a lot of people that were broke, constantly broke.
Yeah.
And then, like I said, my dad was fine, but he was very old school conservative. So I had whatever with money. I didn't have crazy amount of money. And I was very cautious of spending money, almost not cheap, but I was just cautious because I didn't have a lot saved up or whatever. Went out and visited Max and Christian. Spending a week with them, and they're both very open about their finances, at least
right.
amongst each other we are. And so I literally saw what was in their accounts. I saw what Christian was making. This is back when Christian was young too, so it was a much more realistic amount.
It's crazy because I found him when he was so young, and to see what he's doing now. Like,
right.
I haven't followed him to a T all the years, but checked in every now and then. What's he doing? And it's crazy over the past 7 or 8 years, what he's built. I'm dude. That's insane. But anyway.
And so at 21, he was already doing well, but it was a much more obtainable well than what it is now.
Yeah.
It was a well that probably quite a few of us have or could attain pretty. Right. But still, at only 21. And then Max was the same way, and I watched him just running his own business and doing this stuff that back at home to me seemed so like a dream and so intimidating and so impossible. And he was just doing it regularly and just talking with them and having those conversations and these things be regular. And it was crazy. And after that trip, it was like a switch went off in my head. And for the first time ever, I watched my account jump up, my bank account jump up tremendously. Income jumped up tremendously. And I caught myself making moves and just doing everything in a more streamlined, different way than I ever had been.
Right.
With these goals, I raised all my goals higher too, short-term goals and long higher once I came home from that trip and hit them all within 6 months. And it was crazy. It was eye-opening. It was literally just being around a group of people for a week straight and having intimate talks about personal finance details and being around it and seeing them running their own business successfully.
Right.
Literally just took the blinders off. It literally went in my head and it was like, wow, this is where you thought your ceiling was the whole time, and they just showed you it's actually up here.
Yeah.
And then that, I still didn't even rise to their levels, but I rose way up beyond anybody I was around.
Right.
And it was crazy. That painted the picture that really sold me on that old saying that you are who you hang out with. It is so damn true. And the last thing about this is your parents too will affect it. And that's not to say you have bad parents. Like I said, I had amazing parents. It was just they were simply in a different avenue of life than I was for a profession.
Right.
And so even that, it was kind of funny. I noticed I would do pretty well for myself financially, but always kind of in a conservative C+ kind of a way. But never an overachieving Christian Guzman kind of way.
Right. And
it was kind of funny because it kind of reminded me of, again, my dad has done well in an A+ way, but it just kind of the mentality was there matching. It was funny. It was I was blessed to have two supportive parents who did well, which I was around 24/7, which gave me the confidence and wherewithal to do well for myself, which is a bigger privilege than most people have. And I'm very grateful for that. I don't take that for granted. But at the same time, it's the limitation was also there too, where I never went above that,
right?
Because they just didn't do that,
right? So
it can be, if you have parents who are horrible at budgeting or not about business, or both Christian's parents are entrepreneurs, not to his level, but they were both always running their own businesses, even through small businesses.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, and that's why you look at him now. The biggest thing about Christian, if you hang out with him, he's actually less like creative than me and Max are with content creation. That's like the part he slacks on the most. But he's amazing at, his mind is just wired for business in a way I've never seen anybody's mind.
Really?
Like everything he looks at is through a lens of how can we make this a business and then scale it as a business.
Huh.
And if you look at his parents, it's crazy. He's doing better than both of them, but both of them were entrepreneurs. Even if it was very small independent business level things, he was raised around entrepreneurs. So that way of thinking became normal for him.
That makes a lot of sense as why he is wired like that, which goes back to why this should be taught in schools.
Exactly.
Because if you start young, you'll make a lot of money by the time you're 20.
And you can, I don't think you're limited to that, but you have to be aware of that.
Yeah.
Like no one in my family trades. Everyone in my family likes investing, but no one in my family trades. They all even say like they just don't have the stomach for trading, which I understand. It's not for everybody. I totally understand that. And I didn't either, I don't think. I wasn't very emotional, but trading will catch you off guard in ways you don't expect, no matter how strong you are mentally. But I just had to be aware of that. I knew I wasn't built for that, or I shouldn't say built, but I knew I wasn't raised like that. Like I wasn't raised around high risk, high reward people. So I've had to actively be aware of my thoughts, my emotions. I've had to actively pursue breaking out of that and rewiring myself.
Right. Like that's definitely one of the things I have noticed. Like I feel like people who have maybe parents that are bad with money, and I can tell they're bad with money because they won't tell me like specifics, but they'll say like, oh, this is like tight, like, but I know like how much they're making, and it's,
right.
It's a lot of money. And I'll look at like their son or whoever, their kid, they're also bad with money, and I can tell they're bad with money. Like, and so I feel like it just comes from, you have to, I guess, flip that switch and really look at it as, okay, this is not how life is supposed to be. Like I can do better than this, and that's not to bash their parents at all, because everyone has different circumstances.
Of course.
Some people have kids young, maybe they got in a bad situation.
Of course,
everyone has different things, but that doesn't mean that has to define you. I feel like, and I feel like if more people had that mindset, you'd see a lot more successful people in this country.
Yes, and actually to touch on that really quick, none of this was to say that if you're broke or hurting for money, you're doing it wrong or you're horrible. I'm not
Absolutely
saying that at all.
not.
There are definitely circumstances. I mean, like I said, I know I'm blessed to come from great parents like that. Not everybody has that. Like, there's a lot of scenarios. I'm very blessed, and it's different for everybody. But you could also, in a positive way, take this, even just on a small scale. Say you are in a situation that you don't have much control over right now. You're working, you have kids, and it's hard. Like, it's hard to get ahead. And I have people in my family that are like that. I totally understand that. But you could even take this just in a very small way. Like, okay, you've committed to maybe being overdrafted every single month. But take a minute to be disciplined. Look at your budgeting, your financial. Are there things you're spending money on that you don't have to spend money on? All right. Are there habits of yours that are not good habits financially,
right,
that you could improve on? And a lot of times that's the case. I'm not saying everyone who's like this is lazy. Fix it and you'll be a millionaire. I'm not saying that at all. But I know people who are just in very tight situations because of that, kids, whatever it may be. So, if their situation is going to be tight, they have to budget. They have to be cautious. They have to be conscientious of money, for sure. But I also know that they, on top of that, do make poor decisions with money. On top of that, they'll spend money on things they really don't need to spend money on.
Right.
But they're the types where they don't take a step back to look in the mirror. Or they might say it but not really believe it. And
they just complain about it.
Yeah, exactly. So you can...
That's what I mean. Like, everyone has a different situation, but I also feel like there's a lot of situations that can be corrected more on the simple side.
Yeah, you can always improve. That's the best way to say it. You can always improve. Wherever you're at now.
That's what you talk about with Max and Christian. That's what I'm really trying to focus on right now, because I feel like sometimes, especially like, living alone, it's very easy to get into like a little bit of a rut.
Oh yeah.
Like, especially like, I'm like, some nights I'm like, why am I even editing this? Like, I can close the laptop and just go to work tomorrow. Like, it's really not going to affect my life either way. It's so easy to do that. And sometimes I'll hang out with you or Tyler, man. Like, man, that podcast with Tyler was so important to me. I felt more motivated than I had ever felt after talking with him for like...
That's awesome.
Because we talked for like 2 hours, then he stayed for like another couple hours, and we just talked, and I'm like... He left there, and I was like ready to go, and I'm like, it's so nice to see him doing well, and it's like so nice to see the person he's become, but... That's what I mean. Like, it really makes a difference, like the mindset or the people you're around and the mindset they have. And like, it's crazy. And it's like, I feel like I've heard that for so many years and I've never really thought too much about it. But then it happens and you're like, oh, shoot, it's kind of like when you're running with a weight vest on, you just get used to it after a while. You're like, I don't really even notice there's like a vest on me. Then you take the vest off and you're like, oh, this is what it feels like.
No, it's a real thing. And that's why I have a very small circle of friends, just because I take that energy really seriously.
Yeah.
I don't hang out with many people at all. And it's tough, especially in Rhode Island. You know how Rhode Island is. Rhode Island's very like, it's not the place you go if you want to see the latest fashion trends or the biggest entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
They're in here, right. But it's not like, it's not like some other places are.
That's kind of also part of the reason I really want to move, because I'm like, I feel like I just need like a fresh start. But
yeah, moving can be, a lot of it's mental is what I learned, because I did move and it was cool. I learned a lot from moving, but you can easily move and be in the same mental prison as you were at home too.
Yeah.
It all comes down to you.
That's true.
And one time I talked to a guy who was an entrepreneur from here, and I was telling him that exactly. This is a few years ago. Now I actually like Rhode Island, but I wanted to get out so bad, and I just wasn't sure where I wanted to go. And I was just telling him how just blah it can be here. Like, there's no entrepreneurial spirit, nothing. And he said, he goes, I personally liked that, because in my mind, I was like, if I can make it here, then I know I can make it anywhere. I took it like a challenge. And since then, I'm like, that is interesting.
That's a good mindset to have.
Yeah, because it is you at the end of the day. So I'm like, I should be able to sharpen my mind for anything, no matter where I'm at.
Yeah, I guess at the end of the day, it is kind of you versus you.
Yeah, but definitely being around people, like, it's just a confidence thing. Whatever you see as your reality, as the norm, as the limit, you're going to kind of subconsciously adopt. So if you're around people that the reality, the limit, and the norm for them is to be broke,
right?
Then, or unambitious or lazy. It doesn't have to be about money, but whatever it is, doing unhealthy things, bad habits, then you're subconsciously going to kind of submit to that,
right? Even
if you don't entirely do what they're doing, you're going to you'll slowly go from noticing, if you notice at all, oh, that's not where I want to be, to yeah, it's all kind of normal. What are you going to do?
Right.
And before you know it, you're limiting yourself without even realizing it.
So a couple more things before we wrap up here and I let you go. So I want to talk about hustle culture a little bit, because I feel like there's kind of two types of people. There's like the Gary V people, where it's like every single second you're breathing, you need to be working, like 24/7, go. And I know Max was like this a little while ago, like back probably when you were visiting him, and I remember him making a video about this, and he ended up getting burnt out.
Yeah, yep.
But then there's also some people, like I think Ryan Pineda is a great example. I think Graham does a pretty good job of this. They'll work like, longer than the 9 to 5, like the standard 8 hours, but it's like maybe 10, 11-hour days. Nothing like if you start early, it's not like unmanageable. How do you feel about the whole hustle culture thing, and do you feel like you need to be working every single second of every single day, or do you think it's better to like, all right, I'm going to have a set schedule, and that's where I need to get stuff done?
I think for me, I found that having some sort of a set schedule is really important so you don't get burnt out.
Right.
And I remember even talking to Stephen Adelaide, who was the former CEO of Isotori, and now he moved on to being the CEO of something else. He's another awesome business-minded person, but he even told me, he goes, that hustle 24 hours of the day thing is BS, because sometimes as a boss, you're forced to be waiting on others to get something done anyway.
Right.
Sometimes things are just a simple waiting game, which, that was a more literal reason as to why it wasn't realistic. But no, Ariana and I have talked about this a lot. I think it will backfire for most people. Sometimes you'll get people that are literally just wired for it, like Christian.
That doesn't even make sense. Like, I throw him right out the window when he does.
Yeah,
like,
I really think some people are just wired to be like that and be so in a productive way. Keyword productive.
It's crazy. Just one little thing here. Matthew Walker talks about how 1% of the people can function on less than 6 hours of sleep, or less than 7 hours of sleep, and almost no one can. But there's 1% of people. If I had to bet someone that I know of, I'd put Christian in that category.
Yeah, Christian.
I would put him in that category. Anyway, continue.
I totally agree. I totally agree with that. I think he is. Keyword is productive. A lot of people will force themselves to get 4 hours of sleep a night because they're busy, but how productive are you actually being? How sharp are you actually being? Are you hindering yourself? So some people can do that, and I think there's going to be times when what you're doing will demand a lot of you, and maybe you do have to kind of go full steam ahead like that for a window of time.
Right.
But no, I think overall, like, you need balance. You need mental clarity. You need balance.
Right.
You have to. Seriously, like, it'd be like running a race. Like, if you start off sprinting, you try to sprint the whole entire race, you're going to end up destroying your time. Like, you got to pace. You got to know when to hit the gas and know when to fall back and pace yourself.
Right.
I think the same thing goes for this. I think it's person to person. I think whatever you individually feel the best on, I think you'll figure that out for yourself. So I don't think there's one right or wrong amount of time. But I know me and Ariana, we've discussed this. We have to try to set some window where we shut things down and we make ourselves get off of work mode, even if we still want to do work mode, just because it'll start hindering our performance.
I think it's better to leave it, like, assuming you're, like you said, you don't have like a deadline or a project or anything pressing. I think it's better to leave it wanting more at the end of the day, because obviously you could grind, but the more you grind, there could be, I guess, more backlash from it. Yeah. Especially if you don't need to, and it's something that, you know, you've already worked for on 8 or 10 hours. It could definitely hurt you down the road.
Oh yeah.
I feel like.
Oh yeah. Performance will start taking a hit, and you're just gonna burn yourself out. It's a real thing.
That's something I'm trying to get better at and find balance at right now, because for a while, and I'm still doing this right now, and I'm really trying to figure out that sweet spot. I'd work 8 to 4. And then I get out of work, do some different things, like go to the gym, kind of get away from the computer. But then it's like I come back around like 6 or 7. It's like it's like burning me out, kind of work until like 10, 11, 12. Yep. Usually it's not like as late as 12. But I'm like, I got to find some sort of sweet spot, some sort of schedule that works for me, where it's like I can maximize my productivity and I'm not burnt out.
Yeah, I think even creating, I mean, it's tough when you have an actual 9-to-5 job on top of things.
That's the thing. It's like once this does turn into a full-time thing, it'll be very easy for me to set a schedule.
Yeah.
The problem is like getting to that point for now.
Yeah. I still think it'd be beneficial to, like you said, create a window of time where you allow yourself to work. Like come home, create a window of time where you make yourself relax.
Right.
Transition. And then a window of time where you work, and then when that window of time is done, you stop working.
Right.
And I think mentally that'll be good in a lot of ways too, because besides conserving energy and not burning yourself out, it might also just give your brain more structure.
Yeah.
Like I think things can be a little bit easier in the mind. Like I think if you have a bunch of things to do throughout the day, it's going to feel more overwhelming than if your boss told you, hey, here's your schedule for the day. At 5 o'clock you have this, 6 o'clock you have that, 7 you have that.
Right.
Like the latter is like, all right, I have my schedule for the day. I know this, and this is on the plate.
Right.
Whereas if you have a bunch of stuff with no actual schedule set, it's like, well, I got a lot of things floating around I got to attack.
Yeah.
And that can feel more overwhelming. So just giving yourself a schedule where like you have a schedule, even if you're the one making it, I think it's just helpful for the mind.
Yeah, that's what Jeff Bezos says too. He tries to only make like a couple of really like good decisions, like really tackle a couple of really big tasks like per day, because then you just burn yourself out, and you might get to a point where you need to make a really important decision on this really big task, and you might make the wrong decision because maybe you don't get enough sleep, maybe you're just burnt out, whatever the reason is. It could lead to that. So,
yeah, I gave him that idea.
Yeah, did you?
Yeah.
Really? Because he asked me the same exact thing.
No, he texted me and he asked, I'm trying to start this bookstore online, and I was like, yeah, here's what you should probably do.
Did you invest in it?
No, I didn't believe it was going to go anywhere.
Yeah,
well, I still don't. I think it's just a fluke.
It looks like he proved you wrong, by the way. He was in space a couple weeks ago.
No, I think Amazon's a fluke.
Yeah.
It's a big pump and dump.
Yeah, that's what it is. AMC is really where the money is. And Dogecoin.
AMC and Dogecoin.
You know you can buy stuff on Amazon with Dogecoin?
Yeah, because it's going to the moon.
I just made that up. All right, anyway, last thing I want to talk to you about before we wrap up here. Let's talk about YouTube a little bit. Do you miss it at all?
No.
Not at all. Like, you don't miss, like, filming, the editing, nothing. You don't miss anything about it.
No, honestly, I don't.
Wow, that's crazy.
I've still been filming a little bit, like our life at the beach house, like vlog style,
right,
and making it creative, because, I mean, it's been cool over there. And I'm going to put something together at the end of the summer of, like, our whole summer there, and it's going to be, like, epic. But I might just upload it on, like, a personal side channel or something.
Right, or just, like, a private thing.
Yeah,
like,
yeah. So, I mean, I do that. That's fun. Like, I do enjoy filming. And I do enjoy editing. But, no, I don't enjoy doing... Honestly, man, when you've been on social media for a decade, it's crazy how out of the present moment it'll take you.
I believe it.
In subtle ways you don't even notice. Like, I've always had a thick skin. I never got bothered by negative comments or anything like that. But, like, I'll go on Instagram once in a while to share something, and I'll find myself asking myself, like, okay, is this a good time to post? Will this post get a lot of traffic at this time? Is this good content to post? Should I post this content before that? Typical structure stuff. But I'm like, wow, I'm literally stressing my brain out, running through this checklist to make sure other people approve of what I'm sharing with them.
Right.
I'm like, wow, everything I'm doing right now is for other people. And, like, when you do it normally, like, yeah, duh, that's social media. But, like, after being off social media for so long, now coming back, I notice it more.
Right.
I'm in the moment more on my own. Everything I do is just for my own self.
Right.
I don't share anything anymore. So now when I go on and I'm going to share something, it just feels like almost dirty and forced. I'm like, wow, I'm doing this for other people. This is really weird.
Right.
So I don't miss social media at all.
It's crazy how much people will like get caught up in what you're doing too. Like you're probably thinking like, is this a good picture to post? Like, does this look good? Like all these different things. Like I remember a few years back, people were like DMing me about you, like about like what you're doing, like about like Ariana. I'm like, why are you asking me? Like I'm just his friend. Yeah. Like I don't know why you're talking to me about this.
No,
like I'm not gonna answer any of that. Like
yeah, it's crazy, man. The internet's wild.
It's insane. Now, the very last thing I want to say, and I want you to be honest here, as brutally honest as possible.
Okay.
What do you think I can do better on YouTube with this podcast? Whatever I'm doing right now, what do you think I can do better?
Live stream yourself buying AMC.
And cut.
Honestly, man, I don't think you're doing anything wrong at all. Your quality's on point. Your thumbnails are great. Your creativity is 100%. Your consistency is really good. You're constantly springing for better and better quality equipment, which is awesome. So I think, off the top of my head, the only thing left for you now is perhaps venturing out more for the podcast. And you've gotten a lot of Rhode Island friends in the podcast, so now maybe venturing out to say Texas to visit Max, or even if it's other people in the financial world, trying to reach out more and more to other people,
right,
and work up that ladder more and more, which is not the easiest thing to do. But
I did email Max. I have emailed a bunch of people actually, but being a smaller channel, it's tough for like people to get back to you. But I would really like to have him on because I just like to pick his brain about like how he structures his videos because he's so creative.
Well, I didn't know you messaged Max. I can text Max.
I don't know if he's like too busy, but yeah, I mean, if you want to be the middleman here, like
I will. That was the cool thing about reaching out to people to do like collabs, like big powerlifters, like when I did like the Eric Lillibridge collab and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I did so once it was already like established, so like
right,
everyone responded and like obliged. It was really cool.
Yeah.
I didn't have to go through that whole like ignoring emails thing anymore.
And it's like the thing is, like I just said, kind of like being small. Like I don't take offense to it because they probably like I'll post like the link to the channel and like maybe they see it, maybe they don't, and they're just like, oh, he's too small, like it's not worth my time, which I completely understand. Like no harm in that, but at the same time, it's like I've also messaged like smaller channels, like a couple thousand subscribers that I followed, like, hey, like I'll come out to you, like you literally won't have to leave your house, I will fly out there, and they still don't answer me. So it's just like
podcasts are a tough one. I was gonna say that offering to go out in person might be an extra incentive for them to say yes, because I got a million podcast requests when I was on YouTube, and I honestly tried to jump on a lot. I've jumped on a lot that were like brand new, starting up, because I respect everyone's hustle and creativity. So right. I tried to. If I could be any help to anybody, I tried to do that. But it was just like there's a lot, so sometimes I couldn't because I just didn't want to be on Zoom all day long.
Right.
But like. Yeah, if ever there was one that was in person, I was all excited for that because the in-person ones are so much more exciting.
Right. I'm also kind of ready to take a trip anyway because I haven't been anywhere in a couple years. So that even provides me more an incentive to be like, I will come to you. Like, don't even leave your house. I'll be there. Like,
yep. Yeah, man. Well, just keep pushing at it. I mean,
it just takes time.
Yeah, exactly. But I think that's probably the only thing left now is just, extending.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's the thing. I think I just got to sit down and go outside the box a little bit more to find podcast guests because I'm talking to like friends and people. They're really not as willing to come on. There's some people I've really would like to have come on, and they're just like, dude, I don't want to do it in front of the camera. I'm like,
man.
I'm like, you kidding? But I mean, I get it.
I can't
it's
even
not for
imagine
everyone.
being like that.
Yeah, but
another thing too is people really are attracted to dollar amounts. And this is totally up to you, to anybody in their comfort zone. But sharing, account sizes or whatever, I don't even do that. So, but there are channels that do, and that always does well. So,
right.
But that's more like on a clickbait thing.
Yeah.
Well, it's not really clickbait if it's true.
Once my stocks hit, I'll tell people how much I made from them.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, that's what I was planning on doing. Once some of these stocks really start to skyrocket, like I think they're going to. That's when I'll probably make like.
You can do it both ways. How much did I lose?
Yeah, I could. Anyway, man, thanks so much for coming on. Like, I really appreciate it. It was nice sitting and catching up with you for the past couple hours here.
Cool.
But yeah, all Nick's stuff will be linked down below in the description as always. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Like, comment, subscribe, and download if you listen to this on Spotify or Apple Music. And I will see you guys in the next one.